What is going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Hopefully, you're all having a great start to the week. Hopefully, you're all having a good day. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Real quick, I see Nosebleed Section gave me a $2 super chat. Shout out to my guy, Nosebleed Section. Thank you so much. Support means the world to me. So I have special guest Kip Gross, former Major League Baseball player, here on the show with me today. Kip, thank you for coming on to the show. How are you doing today? How's your family?
I'm doing great. Back in Arizona, been going back and forth a little bit from California to Hawaii back to here. So a little warm here today, but I'm doing great. It's a great day to be alive, and let's have some fun today.
Awesome. Let's make it happen. And folks in the chat, if you have any questions for Kip, please drop into the chat. I'll try to grab as many as possible. Sorry. And so doing a lot of travel between California, Hawaii. So what's going on there?
Well, my girlfriend, she lived in Hawaii for 20 something years, and she decided to get out of get out of Hawaii because her kids were all, graduated. Now they're all in college. One's graduated from college now. So she's moved to California. So I've kind of transitioned her a few times, moving furniture and bringing stuff here and doing stuff back and forth. Kind of what I do. I'm always busy and always like moving stuff and building stuff. So I have no problem doing that, but that's why I've been back and forth.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, it's better than just sitting in one place, right? Got to do something or you'll go insane. So
no doubt.
But let's talk about you for those folks that don't know who you are. How did you get into the sport of baseball? I know you were born and raised in Nebraska, and I know Nebraska is football country, especially when it comes to the Huskers, right? How did you fall in love with baseball? Were there other sports that you played, and what made you want to become a professional baseball player?
Well, my story is kind of different than most out there because, I grew up in Western Nebraska, and all we had was Little League baseball. We didn't have high school baseball or any travel ball back then by any means. And so you just kind of played with your team. I think I started when I was 7 on a 9-year-old team. My dad lied to, get me to come play with my cousin. And I still remember that team's name was Boise, and we won the whole thing. And, the thing about it was I just always had a good arm. And I kind of parlayed that into baseball, I guess you could say. And every year I was a pitcher. But I also loved hitting. And I just loved hitting and catching and playing third base. Also, that was kind of my first love, was catching at third base. But unfortunately, coming where I come from, the instruction isn't quite what it can be. I mean, if I knew then what I knew now about the game of baseball and hitting and stuff, I actually think I would have had a decent chance to learn how to hit and do that. I actually give hitting lessons this day because I learned it so bad. Anyway, as I went up through the ranks of Legion baseball, Little League baseball, I ended up getting to play Legion baseball, which is about 30 games in the summer. And it was to the point where I was really, really dominant back then. I mean, I could tell you my stats my last year Legion ball, and it'd blow you away. I mean, but then again, I was playing in Western Nebraska, where you got a lot of farmers and you got people of this, and baseball just wasn't that alive, I guess. But they were out and they competed. But I believe my last year in Legion ball, my numbers, I pitched 74 innings. I had 149 strikeouts.
Wow.
And gave up 15 total hits in those 74 innings. And it's the only stats I can ever even throw out there, because I didn't even pay attention the rest of my career because I just wanted to be a good teammate. But from there, I got no looks whatsoever, no colleges, nobody even said anything to me. And so I went and walked on to the University of Nebraska, which was probably a dumb thing to do. I probably should have went to some community college to walk on, but I didn't know any different. I really didn't. I thought college is college. And at that time, Nebraska was top 10 of the country in baseball. And so here I'm walking on, and I was there for the longest time. My God, I was there for the whole semester. Nobody came to me to say a word, whether I'd made the team or not. I just kind of kept playing it out. And as soon as I got a cap, they handed me a baseball cap. I thought, oh, I made the team. And but they did redshirt me that year, which was kind of a blessing in disguise, because being a redshirt, I basically got to pitch against one of the top 10 teams and lineups in the country once a week. I'd actually throw a scrimmage game against them. And so and there was no pressure on me, just go out and throw the ball. I learned a little bit there while I was there. And then I ended up going to a junior college the next season because Nebraska asked me to go down there. They said, hey, they got this junior college in Tishomingo, Oklahoma called Murray State. If you go there, they'll pay for your schooling. And I said, stop right there. You said they're going to pay for my schooling? I said, yep. I said, where do I sign this deal at? I'm gone. I'll go in a second. Because I from the time I was like 9 years old, I had to basically pay for everything myself growing up because I just didn't get it from the home. But went to junior college there. Got drafted in the third round of the January draft by the Cardinals. And I declined that offer because I still wanted to go play at Nebraska. You know, I had it in my heart. I wanted to go wear that big N on my jersey and the Cornhuskers. So I went back there, had a good year, got drafted in the fourth round by the Mets. And it's kind of when it took off. I just went there. Actually, I didn't sign right away. I went up to Alaska, played in the Alaskan League with the Anchorage Glacier Pilots. And we won the national championship that summer. So I ended my amateur career as a national champion, which was really, really cool. And went to instructional ball with the Mets right after that. And I had my pick of instructors for pitching coach because they probably had 6 or 7 pitching coaches down there when I had never had a pitching coach ever before. I'd never had one in college anywhere. Mike Evans came in as a pitching coach, but he wasn't really a pitching coach per se. He just kind of stepped in because Ray Tromba, who was the pitching coach, had to go back to Vegas for his family for some business thing. So once I got professional ball, I really started to pay attention to mechanics and learning how to pitch and doing all that stuff. And fortunately, I was able to play for 16 years.
Yeah, you played in Major League Baseball for a long time. And I know, if I'm not mistaken, I know you said you got drafted by the Mets. It was like you were like a 4th round pick, if I'm not mistaken. Right. Yeah, and you never got to play for them, though. I know you got drafted in '86. That was the year they won the World Series, which I know you weren't on that team. But did you play for one of their minor league teams, or you said you were playing for? Okay.
Yeah, I played in '87, '88, and '89. I went from A ball to again A ball to then I went to Double A in '88, and then I got called up in '88 to the AAA team. And that's the year they had that big ass trade with the Twins, and they sent a bunch of prospects over, and I was one of them that didn't get sent over there. But that's when Frank Viola came in for the World Series, and they ended up winning the World Series. So you can't blame him for the trade.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a good. You know, if a trade needs to happen, if you're trying to win a World Series, you got to make it happen. Sometimes trades hurt, but if it's going to bring you a championship, you can't say no. And I know, you got drafted by the Mets. You know, you spent some time with that organization for a little while. What was it like with them and their minor league?
You know what? It was really good. I mean, like I said, I came out of college and I thought I knew everything. I really did. And I got over there in instructional ball and I found out really quick I didn't know shit about the game. Right. I mean, I was oh my God, I can't even tell you how much more to the game there is than college baseball. You know, I turn on the College World Series right now and all the regionals, and I just see mistakes after mistakes after mistakes being made. And it's even going up to the big leagues now, but because all the travel ball and they're just letting these kids do what they have to do and they're rushing to the big leagues. So, but it's the Mets. I learned a ton. Greg Pavlik was there. He was huge for my instruction growing up as a baseball player. When I was young. We used to go fishing all the time, and we'd talk about this and talk about that. And he was the bullpen coach for the Mets at that time, so he had a little more insight to things going on as far as the big league clubs. So, you know, it was a kind of a two-way situation, double-edged sword, because the Mets at that time, they basically had a dynasty for a pitching staff, but obviously everybody knows it just kind of deteriorated really, really fast. But man, if they could have kept those guys together and you know, the Strawberries of the world, and some of them could have maybe done a little less off the field, who knows what they could have done in that organization. But it was you know what, it was a pleasure to be over there with them you know, to know that the Mets wanted me to be there with as good as a team that they had. So I was happy about being there.
Yeah, the Mets, the '86 Mets, man, that was an incredible team. You know, you had Doc Gooden, you had Darryl Strawberry, you had David Cohn. You know, did you ever get a chance to interact with any of those guys while you were with them?
No, it's kind of a funny story. My first first year, I told you I said Greg Pavlik. He was the
Yeah.
bullpen coach at the time, and he helped me with a lot. And back then, man, players not like today, where the shoe companies and glove companies just come out and throw everybody whatever they want. Back then you had to be somebody to get something, and so shoes were a big deal. It's kind of funny because I ended up getting Sid Fernandez's shoes to wear my first year of professional baseball because we had the same size, and Pav knew him. So, but as far as interacting with guys, as I got up the ladder a little bit, hell, I used to polish Dwight Gooden's cars. He had a little fleet of cars, and I'd go polish them. That was something I did for money. And so him and I got to be pretty good friends. And then down the line, actually, him and I played together in Houston. So, yeah, I mean, you interact. I played with Strawberry, over in LA, and so over the course of 16 years, you get to interact with a lot of big league players. Just put it that way.
I have no doubt about that. Well, like I said, you've been in Major League Baseball for many, many years, and you also played overseas. I know that you played over in Japan, and we'll talk about that here momentarily. But real quick, I wanted to introduce you to my good friend here. This is my good friend Maza from Fort Train Express. Him and I, we worked together. So he was running a little bit behind. So, we were just kind of talking about Kip's career, getting drafted by the Mets, and him coming up through the ranks as far as playing baseball. So, if you have any questions, please feel free.
Oh, I always got questions. You know that. So I wanted to ask you, what was it like for you going through the whole draft process and, going through the system?
Well, today's draft is completely different than it used to be. Today they got boards and all these different, services and sources and everything out there. I know every team still has their own board. I get that. But in today's game, my son was even saying it a few days ago, the number ones, number twos, number threes, first round picks for the first 10 or so picks are pretty much known now. Back then you didn't know. You really did. You might know who was going to be the number one pick in the country, like a Ken Griffey Jr. or a player like that. But for the most part, you just really didn't know. Marty Harvat was the guy who drafted me from the Mets, and he was in contact with me all the time. And when I say all the time, he'd call me at least once a week during the season when I was in Nebraska. And then when I didn't sign right after the season was over, went to Anchorage, he was calling me up there all the time just to see how things were going, see how I felt. And it kind of upped my stock up there, going up there, because I did really well up in Alaska. And so it was kind of funny. I've actually started the championship game in Wichita. And I don't even know to this day why they started me, because I had a little problem with my in the back by my bone back here in my back, and they didn't play me for about 2 weeks. But the coach at that time, he thought that because I did so well in Alaska, that I deserved to be able to start that game. If you look in the record books at the NBC tournament, I have an infinity ERA. I didn't get an out, and they scored a run, so they take me out, and we end up winning the game, winning the national championship. But the whole draft process was basically just talking to Marty, and some other teams here and there would, hand your card, like the Giants or somebody hand you their card and say, we'll be in touch. And every once in a while they'd call you. But that day, I think it was June 6th. I don't remember what the draft day used to be. It used to be early in June during the World Series. But I'm laying on the couch, sleeping, phone rings. I answer it. Marty Harvat's on the phone, says, Kip, congratulations, the New York Mets, we've drafted you in the 4th round. He said, we'll be in touch for the negotiations for your contract. And I hung up the phone, went back to sleep, believe it or not. I knew it was going to happen. I really did. And for the Mets to be the one, it wasn't a shocker at all. I just basically, the round, I wasn't sure what round I was going to go, because I honestly had no idea what round I was going to go in. And the claim to fame that I had is what I was drafted before Bo Jackson. So I thought I did pretty good.
I'd say that's pretty decent, man. I mean, if I say so myself, so you got the call and then you said you went back to sleep. So there wasn't like a sense of celebration or anything like that. Just
No, like I said, my whole goal in baseball was I shouldn't say my goal. What I wanted to do every year was play at the next level. That's all ever since I was 7 years old, I wanted to play at the next level. I wanted to play with those guys, because they were older than me and you looked up to those guys. And then after I got there, I wanted to play with the next guys, the next guys. And, I actually was a bat boy in Legion ball, like when I was 14 and 13 and 14 or whatever for the Legion team. And they actually ran out of some players one time. And I was their starting shortstop for a while. And so I got to thinking, man, am I this good? I mean, I didn't really think I was, because you just don't know, I never put myself on a pedestal ever, and to be their starting shortstop when I was 13 and 14, when I'm playing with 17 and 18-year-olds, I thought that was kind of cool. But I figured it was just because I had a good arm. I really did. I didn't know any better. But yeah, the whole draft process, it's today, they make it bigger than life. And, they bring these guys out on stage and they have as soon as the guy's drafted, they got his highlights up on ESPN now and where he came from, what he did. And the baseball process, I think it's way overblown, to be honest with you. I think they need to get into these kids a little bit more and break them down. And I'm sure they do to their own extent. But today's game has turned such into a nerd's game where everything's about stats and launch angle and exit velocity and this. When I was just telling my son the other day, we were talking when we saw the draft this last year, no question that first pick should have been a first pick. The second guy came out, he was also the son of a baseball player. And I said, Tucker, I don't know why this kid even getting drafted at this age. And he's still an A-ball right now. That kid is. And so I think I got a little bit of an eye for the process and to see people and what they can do. But it's an inexact science. We know that for sure.
It's funny because I just got done interviewing former major leaguer Kevin Mensch about, all the analytics. And he was saying that analytics has taken over. What are your thoughts on that? Because I personally think they have, and I think they're not doing the game any justice.
I've always liked stats, but what they have now done, I've never been a stat guy by any means when I say that. I've always enjoyed, the guys that have RBIs. I've enjoyed the guys with batting averages that that they can put the ball in play. And you always know who's got home run power. You always know that, and then you always know the guys who can run. And besides that, you really don't need to know a lot more. But today, all these analytics, I'm actually teaching a kid right now that the organization doesn't know. I won't even say what organization, but I've been teaching this kid since high school. He's a hitter. And every video, everything that they watch and do has all these numbers on it. Launch angle, bat speed, exit velocity. Everything is on every stinking video that these kids are watching, and that's all that gets ingrained in their mind. And like last night, I'm watching a game on TV. I think it was the Yankees was playing the Red Sox, and they actually now in the stadium have a number for the amount of break on the ball horizontally and vertically. And I'm like, who gives a shit? Seriously,
Exactly.
Who really cares? Did he throw it for a strike or not? The one kid last night, I think he walked 3 guys or whatever. He's throwing 99 miles an hour. And I'm just like, you can't throw a strike in the big leagues. I got news for you. It doesn't matter how hard you throw. And but the analytics, man, I'm just like with Mensch big time. I was on his show, by the way, and we talked about it a little bit. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And first and foremost, I'll tell you this: the guns today are not even close to the guns that we had when we were playing. And so what you're seeing for this velocity that these guys are throwing today, if Nolan Ryan was pitching today, he'd be throwing 120 miles an hour. Just put it that way. He'd be throwing 110, 115 miles an hour. Not consistently, but when Nolan was on, it was crazy. And I'll go to my grave saying, if he was pitching in today's game, I don't know how many he'd walk, but he'd strike out 15 to 20 every game. And the analytics have changed so much because they want these hitters to all hit home runs now because they don't care about singles and they don't care about strikeouts. Yeah. To me, it's a crying ass shame because there's nothing better than getting your leadoff hitter on, getting him over and getting him in. That's what's ingrained in your head since you're a little kid, and it works. It doesn't work every time, but it works. But if I'm going to sit around and wait for a 3-run jack every time to win a game, it's going to be a boring game to watch, first of all. And the other thing I want to bring up real quick about these analytics is, if this is such a good idea to do what they're doing today, why aren't they scoring more runs than they did 25, 30 years ago? They're not.
Exactly.
You go look at the years, the runs scored by year. It varies back and forth every year. It hasn't gone up at all. So, during the steroid era, okay, it was high. I'll grant it that. Hell, I watched it. But at the same time, I'm way against analytics. And by the way, the worst thing that ever happened in the game of baseball was the invention of the radar gun, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Yeah, they focus too much on the velocity, and the thing with the analytics too. And I've talked with several former players, and you all seem to echo the same thing when it comes to analytics. It sounds like you all are not a fan of it, and I understand why. I'm not the biggest fan of it either. I feel like there should be a blend of like the new school and the old school. I don't think analytics should absolutely take over 100%. The problem is my thing with analytics is that they're putting way too much information into players' heads, and they can't, when they're at the plate or if they're on the mound, they're overthinking everything. So now they can't think for themselves. They're basically looking at an iPad, and there's a lot of useless things that they're putting focus on. For me personally, look, I think it's cool to focus on, like, not focus, but the launch angle and, the spin rate, like, it's cool stuff. But I was like, it's kind of useless because it kind of takes away from the fundamentals of the game. Like, we need, like, whatever happened to the fundamentals, whatever happened putting the ball in play and moving the guy over, like you said. It's almost like guys forgot how to bunt now, and now it's just like, let's see who could throw 103 miles per hour and blow their arm out and, celebrate that, and then, or who could hit a 3-run jack, like you said. It's just, I feel like they hit
it the farthest.
Yeah. Like a lot of the basics of the game have truly have gone away, and I'm hoping it doesn't completely go away because, I feel like they're going off of a computer. I mean, I know the game was much different from when you started. I mean, especially way back when, but it's got to be a little frustrating watching today's game, I'm sure.
It is. And you just said it a second ago. He goes, who hits it the furthest? My boy that I'm working with, this kid I'm working with that organization, he's in high A ball this year and he's doing really well. He tells me, how far the ball went. And I keep telling him, I said, here's the deal. I said, when you hit that long home run like that everybody's eyes open, I said, did they give you 1 point or 2 for that? He says, you mean 1 run? I said, yeah. Did they give you 1 run or 2 runs? He says, 1. I said, so it only has to clear the fence to get the amount of points, right? And he says, yes. I said, so why are you concentrating on trying to hit 500-foot home runs when your 325-foot fly ball is going to go out of the ballpark, and you just miss it? But that's what these kids are getting ingrained. It's crazy to me what these organizations are doing. There's actually right now, I think what I just saw the other day was there's one pitching coach right now hitting coach that was a pitcher. There's 3 guys right now in the major leagues that are hitting coaches, never played college baseball. And there's like 4 of them that played independent baseball. And there's only 16 guys right now in the big leagues, right now hitting coaches in the big leagues, and that actually have major league experience. 16. And people will say, well, not everybody can be a hitting coach. I get that. But why are we hiring guys that never played the game before? I don't get it. I mean, if you've never been there and done it, how do you explain to somebody how you're going to hit a slider off Randy Johnson or the high fastball off Nolan Ryan? I mean, you don't have any insight whatsoever except maybe like you said, an iPad with stats in front of you. If this guy throws, this ball over here and he has a tendency to throw the ball over here, it's not that easy. You just like you said a second ago, they're being programmed and not being able to think for themselves. I mean, hell, they're pulling damn cards out of their back pockets now to where do I got to play this guy? There's 9 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was playing, I swear to God, I could have went through the entire league, and tell you exactly how you should pitch this guy or pitch that guy. And when that came up to you, as far as you pitching that game, you knew every hitter over there. You knew how to pitch them, you know where to pitch them, and you know where they were going to play behind you. But today, it's like there's no thinking whatsoever. You know, if I got to pull a card out to find out where the number 4 hole hitter hits the ball, what am I doing in the clubhouse in my off time? But I should be studying these guys. You know, when you're making 30, 40 million like these guys are now, man, you should have a brain that just is wrapped around what's going on in that field.
Yeah, because you got to put eyes on the game too. I mean, you got to watch, right? You can't just completely go off of a iPad or a tablet. But yeah, it's just amazing to me how much the game has changed.
And it's like the computer is tracking. The computers are tracking these players, not the players tracking the players. And it's kind of disturbing on how much it's taken over. And I don't know, NFE, if you saw last night's game, but on top of the scoreboard on TV, it shows you the percentage that the team has to win the game, which I think is the stupidest thing they could have come up with. Who cares? Let them play. And the other thing I don't understand is, like, on some of these games, you have the players mic'd up talking to announcers. Why? Let them play the game. Who cares? I don't understand the logic behind that.
It's 2 thumbs down on that one. So
no, I'm with you. It's you know, they're trying to get so on that field. They're trying to bring you so close to these players and what's going on out there. And for me, it totally just detracts from what you're trying to do. You know, just like I'll use a description of a good-looking girl you'll see a body. You know, if she's covered up, you got to kind of think about what she looks like underneath that dress. Where on baseball, it's the same thing. You know, let's kind of have to guess what's going on out there and have the color guy up in the booth tell you what's going on instead of the guy on the field telling you what's happening. To me, I'm with you guys 100% on that. I don't like it. I've never liked it. And, you know, the win percentage, as far as what you're saying, that's nothing more than all the stadiums have gambling now. And so they're enticing the fans and the players to bet on the games. That's what that's all about.
It's so stupid. And we're having a gambling problem in the sport. I mean, what was it? Just 2-3 weeks ago, a player got a lifetime ban, and then 4 others got a year ban.
Yeah, one of them was from the Padres, and then there was an umpire last week who got busted for gambling. So I'm like, we got
top umpire in the game. Top umpire in the game too. He's the one that called the perfect game in the World Series. You know, when this all happened with Ohtani, I told a ton. In fact, I said on my podcast, I said it here and there. I said, just wait. You're going to see more. You're going to see a lot more. And they said, why? Yeah. Because once they got to start going into these guys, these bookies' books, they're going to see other names. You know, they're not just after Ohtani. I believe that got swept under the table anyway. But they're going to see other names.
Absolutely, 100%
is going to take over. And so it's to me, it's not done. It's not even close to being done. What you're going to see soon with gamblers and who they're going to start ratting out. You'll see, because money dictates everything, and these guys want their ass paid. That's why they're in the business doing it in the first place.
So I wanted to ask you real quick. Sorry, Mazes. I wanted to ask you real quick. I know with this whole gambling policy, so it just popped in my head. You know, you played for the Reds. Obviously, you know Pete Rose played for Cincinnati. I mean, I think there's a big unfairness towards
absolutely
Pete Rose. And now they're not doing anything with these players like Ohtani. I think there's such a double standard. And
that's where
I don't gamble or anything. I don't promote gambling. I mean, if people do it, they do it. But it's like, I'm me myself personally, I'm against it. Just because I've seen people that I've known that kind of threw their lives away. But that's besides the point. But how do you feel about that? I mean, Pete Rose, being banned from Major League Baseball, and then these guys are, it's like, okay, sweep it under the carpet. It's not a big deal. He's, I feel like with Major League Baseball and Ohtani, it's like they're saying, oh, well, this guy's bringing us money. He's bringing us ratings. So I think it's a load of crap in my opinion, but I just wanted to get your take on that.
You know what? I'm on the fence with Pete Rose. I am. I mean, I've always said I saw that same sign every time I walked in the clubhouse that he saw every day, and all the other players saw it. And there was other players gambling. There were somewhere along the line. Umpires or what have you. But he got caught, and he agreed to a lifetime ban. And then the Hall of Fame comes out. They institute that new rule that if you have a lifetime ban of baseball, that you're not eligible to be on their ballot. So. Mm-hmm. On the other side, they're starting all this gambling shit. They got gambling, big ass signs on the field now promoting gambling. It's wrong. Right. If you're not going to allow your players to do it, why in the hell are you advertising to sell it for your own good? And exactly. I don't like that at all. And Ohtani's deal, man, that case finished fast, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Last year in
yes,
September,
it did. It finished way too fast.
Way fast. And I took my girlfriend to an Angel game last year in September. Ohtani wasn't even playing. In fact, you didn't know, but maybe 3 guys on the field's names, and one of them I knew because I knew the catcher that was in the game. And when we got there, I will promise you this: it was at least half to not 2/3 Ohtani jerseys and Asians in those stands, and he wasn't even playing. So when you talk about the amount of money that he is generating for the Major League Baseball, it's ridiculous what he's bringing in. And so what you guys are saying right there, man, let's get this thing over with. Boom, out. Send that guy to prison for a few years. He'll get out, and he'll get to live the rest of his life scot-free because Ohtani's going to take care of him. So, and probably baseball will too.
You know what it is, though? Sorry, Anna, what it is, it's a slap in the face. Not just to, I think, Pete Rose, because if you're going to allow Ohtani to get away with it, then you can't say, okay, Pete Rose is getting a lifetime ban. I don't care that he agreed to the lifetime ban. That's not what I care about. You gave him a lifetime ban, but then you give Ohtani, a slap on the wrist and don't do anything to him. You didn't even give him a slap on the wrist. To me, that's a slap in the face, not only to Pete Rose, but to the game and the fan bases as well. Because if you're punishing one person, but not the other, then your priorities are very screwed up. And there's something very wrong there. And I don't care that he's the cash cow for baseball. I don't care that he's the golden boy for baseball. If you get caught, you need to be held accountable for it.
No doubt. A few weeks back, I went out to Cincinnati. I did an autograph signing, and I had to go up in a suite with some guys and hang out and talk baseball with some legends. But anyway, when I first agreed to go out to Cincinnati for that game, they were playing the Dodgers, by the way. When I first agreed to go out there, the bleacher seats were $70 a piece. The day Ohtani signed his contract, they put those seats at $300, just because he signed. So that just tells you what he's done monetarily to the game of baseball. And so you guys agree with me. It's a joke what happened with him. It is. How do you not know $16 million not in your account? I'm sorry, how much money you have? Not a chance.
Kip, I noticed when $5 goes missing out of my account. You're going to tell me $16 million was missing? I don't buy that for 1 second. Come on.
No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's funny. I wanted to ask you though, because I know you played for the Reds you spent some time there with the Cincinnati Reds, and you've played along with some great players. You played along with Barry Larkin, Paul O'Neill, right? Eric Davis, I believe, was on that team. Lou Piniella was your manager. What was that Reds team like? Because I know they won the World Series in 1990 against the Oakland A's, and Tony La Russa was the manager of that team. What was that like for you?
It was awesome. Lou was by far the best manager I'd ever had in my 16-year career in the big leagues. You got to spring training, and I just came over because I got traded over there with Randy Myers. Him and I got traded over there for Franco. And so we're sitting in the clubhouse day one, and Lou comes out and starts giving a speech. And first thing Lou said was Pete Rose did a hell of a job here getting all you guys in this room, because basically it was his team, you know. And so for him to right away kind of right the ship with Pete and give him some credit, I thought that was huge. And then what really happened there was the players just got along. And that's one of the things. I played on several other teams, and the 91 Reds was just the opposite. You know, the 90 Reds, everybody got along. 91 Reds, not so much. There was squabbles going on, you know, guys in contract disputes, and it affects everybody. But the 90 Reds, man, it was a special team. You bring up Barry Larkin because he's a Hall of Fame, but I got news for you guys. There has never, ever been a better baseball player when healthy than Eric Davis. I've never seen anybody could do what he did on the field. Every way around that he did. I mean, it was crazy how good he was. And I played against Barry Bonds, and I'm not even letting Barry Bonds say that he was as good as Eric Davis when he was healthy. That's a big step. But you know, you guys got like your top players and your Hall of Famers out there. Just because they're Hall of Famers, like Barry Larkin was not a superstar. He was just a really, really good player for a long, long time. And I'm not throwing, because Barry was one of the best guys to me. He was one of the best guys to me in that clubhouse. But he'll be the first to tell you that he wasn't a superstar. He was just a really, really good player. Eric Davis was a superstar on that team. And, you know, you got the Paul O'Neills. He kicked the ball, so he's got that, you know, it's always been linked to him, so his name comes up all the time. The Nasty Boys, you know, I got traded over with Randy Myers, Norm Charlton, and Rob Dibble. Just a quick story so you guys know, the Nasty Boys name came about because of Tim Liana, who's now passed away a bunch years ago. He got in a car accident in Vegas, but he had a knuckle curve, and that knuckle curve was nasty. When he was throwing good, it was nasty. And so that's where the Nasty Boys actually came from, was Tim Liana's knuckle curve, just for you guys' information.
That's pretty cool. I did not know that, actually. So that is some pretty cool information, man. Thanks for sharing that. You know, I know you spent some time with the Reds, and then you went over to the Dodgers. You know, you went and played for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I know you were on the same team as guys like Orel Hershiser, Mike Piazza. You know, you had Eric Karros on that team. So, you know, you played with some big names on that team too. I mean, what was it like going from, you know, the Cincinnati organization to the Dodgers organization? Like how much of a big change was that for you?
Well, it was huge. I mean, I'm going from a blue collar city to a white collar city over the Dodgers, and media was completely different. And now you got Tom Lasorda instead of, you know, Lou Piniella, which is completely different. You know, I got traded over to Eric Davis, and I got traded over to the Dodgers together. And, you know, it was kind of a weird thing for me because I'd already been traded once to the Reds, and I knew Lou loved me. I mean, Lou and I got along really, really well. You know, if there was a problem with anything, Lou would come to you right away, get it out of the way. Let's get it out of the way now and say it. But I wasn't disappointed to be traded to the Dodgers, but it was kind of weird for me knowing that I'm going out there, and you do have the Orel Hershiser's of the world, Kevin Gross is the world, and, you know, Bobby Ojeda was out there, and it was a good pitching staff. It was. Yeah. Strawberry was out there now. You had some, but that's what the Dodgers have always been. You know, it's more about the big names out there, and unfortunately, I'm the kind of guy that is going to speak my mind also. And Tommy and I didn't get along. It's just how it was. We just didn't get along. And it's kind of funny because, you know, I got called up, sent down, called up, sent down, called up, sent down. And I did really, really good for the Dodgers. I did. I'm patting myself right now on the back a little bit. I did really well for them. But keep getting sent down, it's like, why am I getting sent down all the time? And so I got the opportunity to go play in Japan. And I told my agent, if I ever get the chance, I want to go. Because I want to get out of here with Tommy and the Dodgers. And so I'm actually in AAA packing my bags because I got a team that's going to sign me to a 2-year deal over there. And I'm packing my bags, and Rick Dempsey was the manager at the time. And I'm the only one in the clubhouse besides Demper and Stan Johnson, who was a good friend of mine as a trainer, as a head trainer for the Dodgers for 10 years also. But Depper comes out of his office and says, "Hey, Kip," he goes, "Hey, Tommy's on the phone. He wants to talk to you." I said, "What the hell do you want?" So he turns around, walks back in, gets on the phone for a couple seconds. He comes back out and he says, "Tommy said he wants you back in the big leagues. He don't want you going to Japan. He wants you to come back today, back to the big leagues." I told Tommy to go fuck himself. last words I ever said to Tommy Lasorda was right there, and I got out. So it just a lot of guys will tell you got screwed in the game or not get screwed. Baseball players don't get screwed in the game. There's only so many roster spots you can have. And when I was with the Dodgers, all those roster spots above me were long-term contracts. They're not going to get rid of those guys. It's just not going to happen, especially when they're pitching pretty well.
Yeah.
And so I just needed to find that situation for myself when I got a chance to play. That's why I went to Japan and did it. I ended up playing there 5 years, and I could have played 2 more years over there if I wanted to, but I decided to come back here.
Yeah. Did you like playing in Japan?
Loved it.
Loved
Absolutely
it. Okay.
Loved it. You know why?
Yeah.
The reason I loved it over there, first month of the season, I went kind of like in the middle of the season, but the first month, I didn't know where I was. I was in a completely different atmosphere, different country, no idea what the hell's going on. I'd go from the ball field to my apartment, sit in a seat, and watch Japanese TV. And it was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And then next thing you know, I started getting out, and Rick Shue and Matt Winters were my teammates that were also the Gaijin, which means foreigner. And so they started showing me the ropes a little bit. And but the one thing that I always knew when I was in Japan was I didn't have to ever pack my bags, and I knew where I was going to live. And when I was with the Dodgers, it was like, where am I going to be tomorrow? Where am I going to be tomorrow? You just didn't know. So I really enjoyed Japan, and I ended up leading the league twice over there in wins. So it was good.
Nice. Which I'm glad you brought that up, because somebody in the chat asked this question here. So maybe you could talk about it a little bit more. But Nosebleed section is asking, what was life like on the road? So kind of described a little bit in Japan, but I guess in general, what was it like?
Baseball, people don't get it. Baseball is not an easy sport, and basically because of the travel, you're playing 162 games in 180 days, something like that. So you're not getting many days off at all, and so most of those days off half of them are travel days, and so it kind of ruins your whole day. And so on the road, you want to maybe go find some places that are historically you want to go see, or take in another sport or something while you're there and go see the city. But for the most part, you're a baseball player. You live a different life from 4:00 in the afternoon till 2:00 in the morning. And so it's not like as soon as the game's over, you hop in your car and take off going home. Guys are in the training room, they're lifting, they're preparing for tomorrow still, they're staying for another hour and a half after that game. And then you got to drive home, which usually has traffic. And so, you're going to probably finally shut it down at 2 or 3 in the morning. And so who's going to get up at 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning on the road, especially when you go to the East Coast from the West Coast?
Yeah.
Everything just changes. And that's what people don't get about. They think, oh, you got this glamorous life. You got these airplanes, and, they're all charters and what have you. It's not like that at all. I mean, it's not. I mean, you've got to try to enjoy your teammates as much as you can on the airplanes, just because that's all you have again for 4 or 5 hours. And for the most part, I can't even tell you what they do today. They probably all on their phones today, not even playing cards or anything like that. But it's and now the other problem with what you're saying is on the road is guys don't go out for one reason only, just because of that phone. Everywhere you go now, if you slip out of line just 1 second, it's going to be on video, and next thing you know, you're going to be in the headlines.
Yeah, because I know, again, talking with several former players, traveling on the road, I know it's not easy. Going from one city to the next city, and just that's got to be exhausting after a certain number of years. I'm sure you've probably grown accustomed to it, but I'm sure at some point it does wear you down, right? I mean, better than I would as far as it does, as far as that goes.
Yeah, 100% it does. I mean, that's what I'm saying. When you go travel 5 or 6 hours, it basically takes your body 3 or 4 days to come back from that jet lag. People, jet lag's real, people. It's real.
Oh, it's real.
It gets you. You travel coast to coast one time and wake up the next day. You're not going to feel the same. You're just not. And so it's a tough gig. It is, and that's why the teams on the coast have a little bit harder than the Midwestern teams because they're traveling a little bit better. But at the same time, you still have the same restaurants, you still have the same clubhouses, you still have the same coaches, and it's tough, man. You're spending your time basically 7.5 months out of the season, out of a year, with the same 25 guys and the coaching staff, and so that's your family for majority of the year, not your family at home, not by any means.
Yeah, and being away from your family, I mean, that had to been really difficult, man.
It is. It is. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I went to spring training. Every spring training I had was in Florida, and I lived in California at the time. And so it's not easy just to get your family to come out to Florida from California. And so I only did that a couple times because spring training for me was always a time when I had to take my mind from the off season to baseball again. And I wasn't like Barry Bonds. I could just flick a switch and do it. I had to I always drove to Florida too. I never flew one time, but that was my 3 days where I could just take my mind and turn it into baseball and say, okay, this is I'm a baseball player again. I'm not a dad and a golfer anymore. So that's kind of how it works.
No doubt. Go ahead, Masa.
So, being that, as a professional baseball player, getting to go to all these stadiums, on the road and whatnot, and even at home, what was your favorite stadium to play in?
Oh, favorite by far was Dodger Stadium. It was by far, and it had nothing to do with Tommy Lasorda. And back then, LA was okay. LA was okay. There weren't tents all over the city and everything going on there now. But, the ballpark in LA, just to know the history of it and how old it still is to this day. And it's still probably one of the nicest stadiums out there because they continuously renovate it. And, but it was, it just had a special atmosphere to me because the fans didn't pack in the first inning. The stadium was full in the third inning, and then seventh inning comes around. They start going to their movies and nightlife and doing that. So it was just a different atmosphere, I should say. And my teammates were really good. I really enjoyed having Roger McDowell and some of these other guys that I got to play with. God rest his soul, Tim Cruz, and some of these guys. It was good. It was a good stadium. I mean, it was a pitcher's ballpark by far back then. And so you didn't really have to think about left field, right field, center field as much. And the wind very rarely was blowing there. And, if you pitched in a day game, you had the sun shadows for the first couple innings if you were pitching that day game to the starter. So there's just so many benefits to Dodger Stadium.
No doubt. I wanted to grab another question from the chat here, and you talked about it, but CT Cards is asking, Kip, what was it like going from the Dodgers to overseas? You lead the league over there in 95 and 96. What was the difference between MLB and Japan?
The difference between MLB and Japan was basically they always played small ball. Always. Ichiro's leading off the game. He gets on. They're bunting him over. They're doing me a favor by bunting him over because they could have probably stole second easily. But they always play the small ball, which I really enjoyed because they're so damn good at fundamentals over there. It's crazy, and they get the job done. If somebody's supposed to bunt, number 4 hole is supposed to bunt, he's going to bunt him over, and that you don't see that here at all. And
Kip, you're off the screen. I don't know if you could hear me.
There you go.
There you are. Cool. You're good. Oh.
Am I back?
I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. Yeah, actually, as a catcher, but the Phillies are just trying to call me. He has his ways of doing things with me all the time. Yeah, right in the middle. So anyway, baseball over there, I enjoyed it a lot because they allowed me to be my own self. At first, they were so worried about my ERA. because it was in my contract, different levels of ERA. I got bonuses. And after the first season, I went into him and I said, "Hey guys, do you want me to have a low ERA, or do you want me to win games?" And they said, "Well, if you have low ERA, you're going to win games." I said, "That's not how pitching works." And so that next year, I led the league in wins on a team that probably wasn't very good. And then the next year, I led the team in wins on another team that wasn't very good. And the third year, I was in the running to win the third title. But there'd never been a Gaijin that ever won 3 in a row. And so things during the end of the season quite weren't the same on the field as they always were before. But quick little tidbit about my first year in Japan. My defense didn't make an error behind me my first season over there.
Wow.
It was pretty crazy. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The fundamentals over there, they work at them every day. Ichiro, when he signed to come over here, I got a bunch of calls from the press asking me all about him. I said, I can tell you one thing. I said, I don't know how he's going to hit for average. I said, but he's a really good contact hitter. But he could probably hit 25, 30, 40 home runs if he wanted to. But I will tell you this. Whoever has that outfield gold glove right now, it's gone, because Ichiro is going to win that gold.
Oh, I think somebody was trying to call him again.
Ball again. So anyway, one thing the Japanese do is they practice every day. And even Ichiro practice throwing the ball home plate from right field every day. That's what they do. And it's just how it works. So the fundamentals are so fun to watch over there.
Yeah, I know Japanese players in Japan in general, they're very disciplined. They stay consistent with how they do things, which is something I do appreciate from a lot of the, from the Japanese players and their culture, and just how they carry themselves. So, it's important, and it shows, and you need to have that. I feel like that you don't see that as much here like you do in Japan. I think there is a big difference between the two countries.
It's so funny you're saying that right there, is because almost every year when you watch the Little League World Series on TV, look who's one of the final teams almost every year. It's an Asian team.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They spend all their time on fundamentals. I mean, it's crazy how much time they spend on it. But here they are. They don't make mistakes like that. So it's cool that they do that.
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, you bring up an excellent point. I mean, Little League World Series, it's always a Japanese team. I mean, and it shows, fundamentals, basics. I mean, they matter. That's what wins games at the end of the day. So,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. And, you should never get away from that. And was there a team that you would have liked to play for?
You know what? My last season, I signed a AAA contract with the Rockies. About halfway through this, I went back with the Dodgers for a minute. Jim Tracy was the manager, and he asked me to come over and try to make the team.
Yep.
And so I ended up getting released after about a month with them in Vegas, and so I signed with the Rockies. And that was one team, because I was from Western Nebraska. And it was one team I wish I'd have gotten called up to, but I was way at the end of my career, man. My final 2 years, I was signing to go play golf on the road, and it's a seriously true story. That's why I signed the last 2 years. I wasn't any good anymore, but I was just kind of hoping because Clint was my manager in '88. We won a championship his first year as a manager in A-ball, and so I was kind of hoping maybe he'd say, "Come on up for a couple of days," but it didn't happen. So the Rockies, I would have loved to play a day with them. Yeah.
That's an awesome stadium too. Coors Field is a great stadium. I love that place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a question though about injuries, because there's been a lot of injuries this year. Tommy John surgeries. We have seen more Tommy John surgeries this season than ever before. What is your thoughts on all these injuries, and do you think that the pitch clock has something to do with it?
Yes and yes. There's no question. First of all, mechanics suck in the big leagues. Mechanics suck in baseball, period. The Skeens kid, if he doesn't clean it up soon, he's gonna be getting the same thing. They're bringing out all these different gizmos now and doing things with their bodies and trying to throw as hard as they can. And I've been calling this now for probably 25 years. As far as I'll see a pitcher on TV and I'll tell my son, "Hey, this kid's going to have surgery soon." Why? It says his mechanics suck. And I've only been wrong on one to this date, and that was Frankie Rodriguez when he was with the Angels, and he was a closer. But Frankie, as time went on, he cleaned up his mechanics. He's the only one that I've ever said that did not end up getting surgery. As far as the pitch clock, last year before the season started, I told a ton of people. I said, wait till July and August for this pitch clock. We're going to start seeing number ones and number twos go down. When number ones and number twos never go down because their mechanics are so solid. That's why they're number ones and number twos in the first place. And then next thing you know, here we see these number ones and number twos having arm injuries. It's like, there you go, guys. You can't, I don't have a problem with a time thing, not a clock, but if the umpires would just take the rules as they are and say, hey, Mr. Hitter, get in the box. And then, hey, Mr. Hitter, don't get out of the box. That's all they have to do. It's never been on the pitcher. It was a 13-inning rule before, but they never enforced it. And so, but the pitcher, as a pitcher, as long as I pitched, there's times in that game where you just got to take a breather. I worked fast as fast gets, but there were times like, man, I got to walk around that mound a second, take a little breather and think about what I'm doing here. But they're not given that time to do that. It's just like a weightlifter. Do you do all your sets all at one time? No, you've got to break in between and you sit down, or else you're going to ruin your body. And that's what's happening today. And I really, really 100% believe that pitch clock's having a lot to do with these injuries. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like in between those pitches, your arm needs a rest. And as it is, the way you guys pitch, the way you guys throw the ball, that's not normal. That's not a normal motion for an arm. So I know Maz's pitched for a little bit here. I mean, you pitched, for a long time. It's just you gotta. I feel like there has to be some sort of rest in between innings, or in between pitches, should I say? Because
right,
that's why like Maza brought up, the injuries. There's been a ton of injuries this season. Now Yamamoto just got put on the IL, so he's got a rotator cuff strain. So he's probably going to be out for a little while. Which there's this question that comes up here, right, from our friend Ken. He brings up Yamamoto because he says Yamamoto just went on the IL with a shoulder issue. Is the size and weight difference in MLB and MPO balls contributed to his injury? Which I think is an excellent question. Or
no, it's not. It's just these guys. I told my son this right away. Japanese pitchers don't pitch like we do over here. Mm-hmm. We are on a 5-man rotation when in Japan they might be on an 8-man rotation. I mean, I pitched every 5 days. Every couple times I wanted 3 days rest in Japan. But the Japanese don't normally just get in a rotation. That guy might go through his bullpen this week and be terrible. He's like, I can't pitch right now. My bullpen was terrible. And so they'll back him up a day or two, and that's what they don't do here. And I told my son, you just watch and see what happens here with this guy. You give him a little time. And I think they actually put him on a 6-day rotation, if I'm not wrong. And so all these things come into play down the road. If a guy needs 6 days rest normally and comes over here, he's only getting 4 days rest. It's going to take a toll on him. He's got to get used to that stuff. So the size of the ball and stuff, I think it's all the same because I've got balls from both, and they're all basically the same size.
No doubt.
There was also something that you brought up, NFE, about the injuries with guys getting hurt and whatnot. But we've also seen guys who have gotten multiple Tommy John surgeries, not just one, but multiple. John Means is one of them. Shohei Ohtani is the other. I mean, we are on the verge of seeing guys get 2 to 3 Tommy John surgeries, before they even play again. I mean, that's a very scary thought to be thinking and to have in the back of your head. He's gotten a Tommy John surgery once. He's gotten a Tommy John surgery once. He's gotten it twice, and so is this guy. I mean, that's a scary thought just to even think about. Guys getting multiple Tommy John surgeries because their UCL is so damaged from the constant throwing. It's a very scary thought.
Well, here's my thought on this, and I actually brought this up earlier in the season. There was a point in time, I don't remember how many games in it was, but there was already I think it was 75 or 80 relievers on a pace for 60 appearances this year. And this was early on. And I actually took a screenshot of all those guys that already had so many appearances. And I said, just let's wait till we get about July and August and see where all these guys are. Because you can't. I mean, certain guys can do it. They can do it. But for the most part, you just can't take a guy out there and have him warm up and warm up and warm up and then go throw an inning and then tomorrow do it again and you do it again and do it again. You got to give these guys a rest. I got a really good friend. He's in one of the top organizations in baseball, and he's one of the pitching instructors. And I talked to him about this a couple months ago. He says, Kip, he goes, it's the craziest thing what they're doing. He says, they don't care. All they do is they got a guy in the big leagues. They're going to let him throw. And as soon as he can't do it anymore, he breaks his arm. They send him to a doctor. They bring the next guy up, and they're going to do the same thing to him. He says that's all they're caring about. They don't care about the health at all. And this is one of the top instructors in the organization telling me this.
Oh my God,
that's scary. And
I won't never mention
it is
whatever, but it's absolutely it's mind-boggling what's going on in baseball today. It's mind-boggling. Yeah.
Yeah,
and all they care about that radar gun. And so, oh, by the way, we were talking about the spin rate earlier. Just so everybody understands spin rate, the average major leaguer fastball has 24 revolutions per minute. Obviously, it doesn't take a minute for that ball to get to home plate. The average fastball has 10 rotations from the hand to the glove, 10. And so, and a curveball has 7. So my whole big question about this spin rate thing is how much more are they spinning the ball to make it 10 than it was before from 55 feet away? I don't get it. I'll never get it. Yeah.
It's just so hard to watch because you've got. I'm gonna take John Means for example, because John Means of the Orioles, he's had 2 Tommy John surgeries, and the last time he pitched, I think, was 2 years ago, and that is because he's had 2 Tommy John surgeries. But he had such a good career ahead of him, and because of his 2 Tommy John surgeries, it's like his whole career got derailed.
Yeah.
He hasn't pitched a full season since 2019.
Right.
In which he's played in 31 games. 28, he was derailed, I think, by some injuries. He only pitched in 26 games. But someone like that who had such a big upside with 2 Tommy Johns, it's just hard to watch.
It's all mechanics. I can break down a pitcher in 3 seconds just by watching him throw a pitch, and I can tell you whether he's going to be good or whether he's going to be bad mechanically wise. And it's no secret that I can do this because I've done it numerous times with guys that haven't had surgery also. But what you're saying about all these injuries and stuff, I think something's going to change when the insurance company starts saying, we're not going to insure these guys anymore. Why would I insure this guy when he's already had 1 Tommy John surgery? Why would I do it again? I don't want to have to pay that big contract. And I think that's what's going to do it because the owners right now aren't having to pay but the insurance policy. And as soon as that money starts coming out of the owner's pocket, I think things are going to change a little bit. They're going to say, hey, we got to figure this out. Because basically right now what you have in the big leagues is a bunch of AAA pitchers coming in for relief because the main ones are all on the shelf. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. These injuries are so bad. And, I'm hearing about high school players and even like little kids, and you're hearing little kids getting hurt and they're requiring some sort of like surgery. And I'm like, that is scary. That is just absolutely scary.
It's a scary thought.
Yeah, it's a scary. What was that? I'm sorry.
12-year-olds are the ones that are the highest right now. Getting surgery.
It's insane. It's like they can't even have fun playing the game now. They're like trying to compete like major leaguers. It's like, no, let them learn the game. As far as competing, when that time comes, they'll compete, but let them develop. It's just it's just so it's frustrating. It really is and it's scary to hear that with 12-year-olds. I mean, 12-year-olds, they're kids. They're still learning the game. So
God, yeah.
Both
Yeah,
of
big
us
time.
had interviewed Bruce Maxwell, and he was talking about that. And one of the things he said was he had to get Tommy John surgery because he blew his arm out. And it took him 2 years before he felt perfectly healthy.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I can see that big time for sure. You know what's funny is Tommy John surgery was performed by what's his name, the doctor out in L.A. Hell, I had him.
Dr. James Andrews?
Elatrosh.
No. God, he was a doctor for the Dodgers all those years. Anyway, Dr. Joe. Anyway, when I was in Japan, I had an issue with my elbow. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't feel my arm for about 5 years. I literally could not feel the skin of my arm for almost 5 years. And I'm in spring training one day, and I go out and I throw 100% fastballs in the game. Don't give up any runs, nothing like that. And they're like, "Oh God, you did so good today." I said, "Guys, I got to figure out what's going on with my elbow. Something's going on here." Because every once in a while I'd be brushing my teeth, whatever, and my arm would just like electricity, right?
Yeah.
So they fly me back to see Dr. Job. I go in to see Dr. Job. And I'm talking to him, and he's moving my arm around. He says, "Does that hurt? Does that hurt?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can feel that for sure. I can feel that." He says, "Well, you got a ligament problem. We got to do surgery and do the Tommy John surgery on you." I'm like, "Okay, that's what you got, right?" So I actually they put the brace or the deal on my wrist to check in the hospital, and my agent calls, and this is in '98. My agent calls, and he says, "So what's the deal?" I said, "Well, Job just said I got to get Tommy John surgery. My ligament's blown out." He said, "So what do you do?" I go, "Well, he took my arm and he wiggled it a few times and he said it doesn't feel good, so you got to have Tommy John surgery." He says, "Get the hell out of there now." He says, "Take that thing off your wrist, get in your truck, drive to the LA airport, and I'm going to have a ticket waiting for you to go to Birmingham, Alabama, out there to see the other guy out there." And so
Dr. James Andrews?
Dr. James Andrews. I went and saw Dr. James for 3 days. He performed tests on me for 3 days. X-rays, MRIs, put my elbow in a vise and pulled it apart. He comes in after 3 days. He sits down in his chair with his boots up, and he's got his conglomerate behind him, all the guys behind him. And he says, "Kip, I don't have an idea what Job's talking about." He says, "I can't find it. I can't see it." He says, "I have no idea what he's talking about. I see a bone spur in there that's probably causing problems on your ulnar nerve, but I don't see anything wrong with your ligament." He says, "But I'm going to do surgery in the morning." He said, "But what I'm going to ask you to do is sign right here. If there's a problem with your ligament," he says, "I need to have permission to do it." But he says, "I don't see it." I wake up from the surgery. Instantly, I knew I was fixed because there was a bone spur sticking in my ulnar nerve. And so there was no feeling in my arm from it. And he came to me probably 2 minutes after I had surgery. He says, "Kip," he goes, "You got a ligament of a 20-year-old. He says, "I have no clue what he saw out there."
Okay. So apparently this first doctor that you saw didn't know what they were doing.
He's the one that invented the surgery. Joe. He's the one that did it on Tommy John. He's the original Tommy John guy. Yeah. So it was here. You got the one of the supposedly the top guy in the world doing Tommy John surgery. He don't even take an X-ray. He's wiggled my arm, and you're gonna have surgery. It was
Oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah.
Oh boy is right. Yeah.
And we're off.
Yeah, and we're off. We're off. All right. We're off. All right. Just a couple more questions from the chat here. So Dev, I mean, this is a pretty general question. I know you kind of covered it, but he's asking what's the difference between the game now and back in the 90s. I'm sure you could take that anywhere, really. Yep. I mean, I know there's major differences, but
yeah. Besides all the rules changes by this idiot commissioner, which he is.
Thank you.
As soon as he signed the contract, I told everybody. I said, "Watch this guy. He's going to come in and he's going to put his stamp all over this game, and it's going to suck." Mm-hmm. And what he's done. But I'll tell you what. The difference between the 90s and today is the game of baseball started having the umpires take over, and it completely changed the game because as players we policed ourselves. If there's a problem at second base, that guy knew he was going to get drilled, or he knew he was getting one tough and tight. He knew it. I played 16 years. I probably led my team almost every year in hit batters. And I never got charged one time. And the reason why I never got charged one time is because the hitter knew it was coming. He knew it was coming because they knew they were going to deserve it, and it was over with. Today, you just throw a pitch up and in. Hell, both
you get charged.
Both teams get warned.
You get
first
warned,
of all,
yeah.
And they're like, "Why am I being warned? I didn't do it. I'm on the other team." And so they're taking too much control, and so that's what's happening with this game now. You can't even pitch inside anymore. I mean, I saw a guy the other day. He got thrown out early in the game because he hit a guy. I mean, he just got away from it. Why was he hitting this guy? But they threw the pitcher out of the game. Why? You know, it's. Can you even imagine Nolan Ryan pitching in today's game? The way he threw inside,
You know, it's
all these rule changes bug me. They just bug me because they're not needed. Every one of them they've instituted so far has been for time. And how many have actually sped up the game? Okay, one, the pitch clock. The rest of them, what are they for? I don't get it.
Well, and that's another. Real quick, I was going to mention the. Hold on. I was going to say with the rules changes and whatnot. So, Joel here is asking about the Gross runner. I'm sure you've
dumbest shit ever.
Yeah, dumb, right?
dumbest shit ever.
The stupidest rule.
Dumber than stupid is what I call that.
You know, you brought up a point about pitching inside. A prime example of that would be in the 2015 NLCS after the whole incident in LA with Utley and what's his name? Ruben Tejada, I think it was.
Right.
Where Syndergaard threw behind Utley and he got thrown out. For what? No warning, just he was gone. So it's stuff like that I agree that.
But that's what I'm saying. At that point in time, Utley knows, okay, they just tried to get me back. It's over with. It's done. But the umpires, because this commissioner, these guys come in and they say, well, you got to take more control. Now players are being tossed for what? He was expecting that. He was expecting one in his ear hole, if not his, in his rib cage, if not his ear hole. And it would have been over with. But now you've got the umpires taking over saying, well, he did that on purpose. No shit, he did it on purpose. And it's over with. Let it go. It's over with. That's what happens in baseball. It's been going on for 150 years. And now you want to change that? Why? Because somebody's putting a stamp on that, his name on that those rules somehow. And I think it all sucks.
Yeah,
I agree.
Speaking of umpires, I mean, everybody's favorite, Angel Hernandez, retired. I mean, I'm sure the baseball world threw a party. I mean, I don't know how you felt.
Angel Hernandez and I came up together in the minor leagues, and
did you really?
He was god awful back then, and everybody's like,
so,
"Why is he keep getting promoted?" And I played with quite a few umpires that came up at that same time, and they weren't all great. Like, oh my God, Angel Hernandez, how bad can you be and keep getting promoted? I honestly think it was a race thing. They kept doing it because he was Spanish or whatever nationality was, and they wanted to promote him. There's no other reason it could have been because he was terrible.
I know. So was he as bad as everybody said he was?
Worse.
Wow.
He was worse than everybody said he was. Yeah, it just
wow.
you gotta. The problem is once you get to a certain level as a major league umpire, they have no control over you anymore because it's unionized, and so there's nothing they can do to him. He had to retire on his own. I'm sure they gave him something to get out because it was getting ridiculous with these calls he's making. And, he just kept, look at me out here. And he ended up suing Major League Baseball, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Discrimination.
I have no idea.
Yeah, when he announced
discrimination, he thought he was being discriminated on. Because
it was ridiculous. When he announced his retirement, I was so ecstatic. I was like, finally, man.
Absolutely.
I was like, all right, can we have like more of these umpires that are bad, like retired too? Because it would make the game better. But although I don't know, now they're talking about robot umps. But
I will say this.
That's another stupid idea of Manfred's.
I will say this about Angel Hernandez, though. From the other umpires that I know that know Angel Hernandez, they said he's one of the nicest people, giving people you'll ever know. He said he's off the charts, off the field with people in his time and everything. So, you know what? Maybe he should have just had a different occupation.
Yeah, really. Maybe he should have done something else, like you said. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, There have been umpires in Major League Baseball that I wonder if they really belong in the majors. Joe West was one of them. CB Buckner's the other, and Laz Diaz is the other.
I will tell you this. Joe West is a really good friend of mine, and he was actually there for my debut in 1990 as a third base umpire. Joe wasn't as bad as you think he was. He was just more of the guy that yeah, as far as calling balls and strikes, he was really good. But the problem with Joe was he always interacted with the players and the fans some, and kind of like making little games. Back with Al Hrabosky, I don't remember if you remember that little incident he had with Al Hrabosky. Al wanted a new ball, so he throws it back. So Joe throws him another ball. He throws him another one back. So Joe kind of throws him another ball the same way. Then next thing you know, Hrabosky rolled one back to him at the plate. So Joe rolled one back to Hrabosky. And that's kind of who he was, and how he was as an umpire out there. He interacted, and he had fun doing it. But as far as balls and strikes, he was pretty damn good. He was.
Interesting.
Okay.
I know that former White Sox announcer Hawk Harrelson was not too fond of him.
I'm sure Hawk Harrell wasn't the only one, but yeah, you get down in the. Joe was one. He's a great guy too. I mean, I've texted him back and forth over the years about different things, and he's always there. And he hung on. Now he's the most tenured in most games ever in the history of the game. So he was there forever. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And then here's another question. This is from Ken. He's asking you, as a pitcher, did you load the ball for grip efficiency? He's asking if you ever used any spider tack or pine tar.
This is a great question, because I was just the opposite. I didn't want pine tar. I didn't even know what spider tack was when I played. There were guys who used pine tar. There was guys that put the sun lotion on with the other stuff on there to make it tacky. Me personally, this is another reason why Lasorda and I never got along, because I always had long hair in the back.
Yeah.
And the reason I kept it long is because I would sweat a lot back there. So every once in a while I'd load up with my fingers on the sweat. I call it a dry sinker. And so the less I had on the ball, the better I was with my sinker. So I didn't load up anything besides just sweat.
Oh man, I it's funny that you say you reach here. In today's game, they would have definitely checked you, and they would have been like, "Hey, what do you got? What do you got behind you?"
And nothing. There's nothing ever. There's nothing. And Lasorda always wanted me to cut my hair, and I always told him, "Dude, that's why I got long hair, so I can load up a little bit once in a while." But he always cut your hair. Like, yeah, there you go, Tommy.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't play for the Yankees then, because they definitely would have made you cut your hair. So,
you know what? I would have had no problem with that, because that was their tradition. Just like when I was at the Reds, you couldn't have your hair to your collar, and I got that. But when I got over there, guys had longer hair, but because I was his pawn or whatever, he didn't like me having long hair, and it was a weird thing over there with him and me. It just it wasn't good.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, and another question here: do you see Major League Baseball changing philosophy since there's been so many Tommy John surgeries, or do you think they're just going to continue on this trend that they're?
No, that's what I was getting on earlier. I think it's going to change because these owners are going to have to stop getting insurance on these players, and where are they going to go with it? You got to keep your players healthy. When today they don't care. Just throw another one out until. We got a whole. How many guys can be on a DL at one time? By the way, it's crazy what's happening right now. But yeah, I do see it changing down the road. But it's going to have to come from a philosophy from one team first, and people say, okay, this is actually working, and they're going to have to copycat from there.
Yeah, no doubt. I wanted to ask you: are you still doing your thing with the Victoria Seals? I know. No. Okay, I wasn't sure. Like I know.
That was a 1-year thing. That was 2010, and actually went up there with Brett Boone. Brett Boone was the manager, and he asked me to be his pitching coach, and he had some issues, and so after 5 games, he had to go back to California, and they made me the manager, which I should have been in the first place, because I did everything to begin for the most part. I was a GM, I was a pitching coach, I was a hitting coach, I was the manager, a traveling secretary. I mean, I did it all over there. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, man. I enjoyed it, but the only reason I stayed there is because I'm the one that signed all those players. It wasn't Boone who signed them. I did it. And so I felt obligated to stay with these kids the whole season. We had fun. It was a good time. And unfortunately, in independent ball, they can change things as the season goes. So our second half, not roster, but our schedule in the second half completely changed because the team down in Mexico couldn't travel as much. And so we didn't get to play that team one time the entire season where everybody else didn't, and they weren't a good team. And so we knew we weren't going to get to the championship because our schedule just didn't allow it. But I worked my ass off for that team every day. And then the next season, they wanted to hire me back to do it again, but the town of Victoria, the city of Victoria, and the team couldn't come to terms with what they're going to give. Because I think if I remember right, the city was asking for 75% of everything generated when it's normally you pay $1 to the city and you split everything 50-50. And it was ridiculous. Like beer sales, they wanted like 85% of the beer sales.
Whoa.
And so they just said, screw it, we're done. We're not gonna play in Victoria anymore.
Right. Yeah, that's a large percentage right there. That's Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So now in your free time, sounds like you travel quite a bit. Anything else that you do in your free time besides baseball?
I give lessons. I mean, kids call me and their parents call me, whatever. I just had a kid here a couple days ago. Went out back and I gave him a little hitting lesson. He was here from Hawaii actually.
Oh, cool.
And it was really cool. Yeah, I mean, I get parents or players or something once in a while who say, hey, can you work with my kid? I do a lot of it interactive online, but if I can get the kid in person, it's a lot better. But that's basically what I do, and then keep care of my house and my kid.
I heard that. And so are you gonna be coaching little kids at all, or like teams or anything like that?
I did it from the time my son was 8 until the year he graduated, and I did teams in between. I coached high school for 5 years, did really well as a coach everywhere I was. But you know what? It just got to the point where I'm spending so much time and energy doing all these things that I can't really do some of the things that I love to do myself. Just go out and travel here. Because you can't, if you're going to coach a baseball team, you can't travel. You can't. I mean, you got to be there for the whole thing. And so no, I won't be coaching any youngsters soon, put it that way. Because, I wish I could, only because how travel ball has changed so much and all they care about is winning. And if you teach the fundamentals of the game and teach how to play the game, you're going to win in the end. And that's what I did every year. And that's why we always won in the end, didn't even matter what team I had.
Yeah.
I do have one more question for Kip.
Go ahead.
If a major league team called you up and said, we want to offer you a coaching job, would you take it?
It would have to depend on the situation. Yeah. It's, I got called about 10 years ago or so by a couple of teams. I actually went to an interview with the Padres, and I just flat out asked them right there at the interview. I said, so if I take this coaching position, am I going to be able to make the decisions as far as how these pitchers are going to pitch? And so they said, no, that's all going to come from upstairs. I said, you got the wrong guy.
That's a fair. Wow. I think that's a fair answer. No, good for you for standing your ground on that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a fair answer. I also think that you have a very valid point, though, because that should not be coming from upstairs. No. You, as the coach, should have the control over that, not the people upstairs who are typing on their computer, following everything on their computer. No, it's the guy actually watching the guy who's throwing. So I think that's a very valid and fair answer.
Yeah. That 2010 team I had up in Victoria was kind of cool because what you're saying right now about the pitching and watching whatever, I made a pact with that team, all my pitchers. I told them, before the season started, I said, if I get you, I guarantee you'll pitch in that game. I guarantee you will. And I had certain ways I was tracking all the pitchers as far as how many innings they got in, what have you. And I put the other guy on the shelf the next day. We never had one injury the entire season up there for a pitcher, not one. I shouldn't say that. One guy did, but he already had a bad elbow coming in. That's why he was there in the first place. But nobody got hurt. We had a blast. set multiple pitching records, set multiple running records, did all kinds of stuff up there. And that's what I'm saying. You care and do things properly, fundamentally right, you're going to do well in the end.
Yeah, no doubt. And, you having such a great eye for pitching and pitchers and knowing like who's going to get hurt, when you have these conversations. I wanted to ask, currently in today's game, what pitcher do you like right now? Like, which pitcher catches your attention the most, would you say?
Well, God, what the heck's his name? The kid that's over, he's with the, I think he's with the Twins now. God, I can't even think of his name. Kershaw is one that he's got great mechanics, and he gets a bad back, and that's what you're going to get from. But I look at pitchers that have great mechanics, and the reason they have great mechanics or they pitch really well is because they have great mechanics. I wish Kershaw would have stood up for himself a couple years ago when he had that perfect game through 7 innings. I think that was a total bullshit thing for them to come out and take him out of the game. How many perfect games you even get a chance to throw in your career, much less all through baseball over time? Yeah. I look at just pitchers all the time and say, this guy's going to be good because he has good mechanics. Learning how to pitch is a different story, but if you got good mechanics, you're going to be able to throw the ball where you want to throw it. And that's like a guy like Greg Maddux, you don't have to throw the ball hard to be a pitcher. You don't have to light up a radar gun. You just have to learn how to pitch and learn how to throw the ball in certain quadrants of that zone or out of the zone for that matter to get guys out. And in today's game, like I said earlier, the radar gun has completely screwed up the game of baseball. It's completely screwed it up. Everything you see now is about speed. Everything's about speed. And baseball's not about speed. It's about learning the game and learning how to play the game. Last week, my son's college baseball team that he likes the most is Oregon Ducks. I think they had a 6 or 7 run lead in the 8th inning or something like that. And they got these kids out there that are in pitching, throwing curveball, trying to throw them for strikes. You got a 6-run lead in the 8th inning and you're throwing curveballs. You deserve to lose the game. And That's what I'm saying. Get in there, throw fastballs right down the middle of the plate, let themselves get them out. They score a run, they hit a bomb. Who cares? Now you got a 5-run lead instead of a 6-run lead. That other team actually came back and beat them because they had 5 or 6 straight walks because they're just constantly. I don't understand what's going on in today's game. I really don't.
I really feel like pitchers and teams nowadays try to overcompensate for stuff that they don't need to overcompensate for.
Oh yeah, 100% they do. Always overcompensating. That's what was the whole discussion we had about this again the other night. Was it Florida State and Tennessee's playing, and Florida State's out there. They got a 3-run lead, and they're trying to throw curveballs and changeups and stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? You need 3 outs here, 3 outs. Next thing you know, they come back and the kid check swung, did he or did he not? But it shouldn't even got to that point because they're trying to trick these guys instead of here, hit it. And that's part of the game and learn it. And that's another reason why I don't care about ERAs. I care about wins and losses because the guy that knows how to win, I want him on my team. The guy that cares about his ERA, that's all he cares about is himself and having a low ERA. But if I'm in the 9th inning the other night, I'll give up 2 runs in a second to win that game. I don't care if I give up 2 runs. I just can't give up a third. And that's where today's game is different because it's all about numbers and analytics and all that stuff. So I'm not a fan.
Yeah, no, I got you. I as far as ERA, a low ERA is nice and all, but I mean, like you said, if you're giving up 2 runs, but you still win the game, at the end of the day, I mean, a win is a win. So, that's the way I see it. So, yeah, and that pitcher from the Twins, is he a starting pitcher? I was just curious.
Yes. Yeah, starting pitcher. I can't remember. I think he's got 10 years in now. God, I can't think of his name. Right-handed pitcher, great mechanics. I mean, great mechanics, and he's been one of the top pitchers in baseball for the last 10 years.
For the last 10 years.
Yeah, he's been around a while. Yeah, I can't think of his name.
You say he's a starter?
Yeah, he's always been a starter.
I was gonna say Pablo Lopez, but he hasn't played 10 years.
No, he's not a Latin kid. He's not a Latin kid.
Oh, he's not a Latin kid. Okay.
No, not a Latin kid. He's with the Twins. He's been around. He's been around a few different teams over the years, but he's always been consistent, and he's always been healthy, and that's how he's always going to be. He's got great mechanics, and when you have great mechanics, you're giving yourself a chance every time. Where now these guys that don't have great mechanics, they're just throwing as hard as they can up there, and boop boop boop, and there's no command. If you're in the big leagues, for me, if you're not a Rob Dibble, you got to have some command. And by the way, Rob Dibble still had command on his slider. He could throw his slider where he wanted to, but you've got to be able to command at least one or two pitches to pitch the big leagues. And these guys are just letting it fly, man. And the one thing that's helping them, though, the strike zone's so much higher now than it used to be. It used to be, a little bit below the waist to the top of the knees, and now it's bottom of the knees all the way up to here, to your chest. And it's like God, Nolan Ryan, I swear, he'd have 15, 20 strikeouts every game now. I mean, it would be stupid how that guy would perform today with that curveball and his fastball.
Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt. I'm trying to think of the names from the Twins. It's like killing me right now. So
I'll text you later. I'll remember what his name is.
I mean,
is he retired now or
no? He's
currently on the team.
Yeah, he's on a team, and he's just one of those guys. You just don't really hear much about him, but he's always consistently there. I think at the beginning of the season, he was leading the league in ERA for a while, too.
Stephen Okert, maybe?
No,
okay.
No.
Shoot.
I'm probably wrong on the team right now, too, but that's okay.
That's right.
Was it Sonny Gray?
Sonny Gray, there you go.
Okay, I was like Sonny Gray. Yeah.
Gray.
Thank you, Stephen B.
There. Thank you.
He's with St. Louis now.
St. Louis now. There you go. He's moved around a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he's still hurt, right, Maza? Or
let me look. I'm not sure.
I remember he was. Yeah, because I remember he got hurt. He was injured. Because
he was hurt, but I'm not sure if he's still hurt. Let me.
Yeah. The Cardinals.
I think I just saw him pitching. A couple weeks ago.
You might be right.
He is not hurt. He is actually right now pitching.
Yeah.
But he's 8-4 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He knows how to pitch. He knows how to pitch on that team. 8-4. Right.
Yeah. He had when he was with the Yankees, I mean, he got lit up, but I think that was because the pitching coach at that time was trying to change his pitch. Trying to change him as a pitcher, which was bad. You never want to do that. But he shined with he's shining with St. Louis. He did well with the Twins. So, good for him. I'm glad I'm glad he's working out. But yeah, he's a good example of a good pitcher. So,
nothing flashy at all.
Nothing flashy.
He just goes out and gets the job done with good mechanics, and that's what he since the day he came out of college. I told my son, this kid's going to be in the big leagues a long time. Wow.
Yeah. So I take it guys like Mason Miller probably don't impress you.
What's so funny is I don't even look at their arm when they're throwing. I just look at their lower halves. All I got to see what they're doing with the lower half, and I can tell you in a second if they're going to break their arm or not. And almost every last one that I've said is going to, and everyone that I said isn't going to hasn't had a problem. So I think Major League Baseball needs to get back to. Here's one of the problems I'm bringing this up to is one of the things with baseball is now they've eliminated so many lower class minor league teams. So the development's not there anymore, as it was back when. There was a time when their teams had, 8, 9 different minor league teams, and now where they have A ball, AA, AAA, and probably low A, and then you got your 2 rookie ball teams that are just a half a season after the draft. So the instruction's not there. They've got to rush you now a little bit to move you to figure out for next year because there's not as many spots to put people. And you're eliminating how many players now that aren't being signed because there aren't spots to put them anymore. So the professional baseball world now is turned to independent teams, basically to be their minor league teams, and it's kind of a shit show, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no doubt. But Maza, I was gonna ask you. Sorry, I think it's just perception, but anything else you got, man, or how we feeling?
No, man, I'm good, man.
Okay.
Hey,
Good?
Mazda, I got to tell you something. One thing about baseball, you're never late. You can't be late.
Yep.
Whenever you're late, you got to go take your checkbook to the manager and say, okay, I was late. How much? That's what you do.
Yeah.
I had to throw that out there to you. I was going to say it earlier, but I got you.
No, you're good.
Well, you could go run like 20 laps, man. How about that?
Yeah,
I never got the
probably
chance to run
would
laps.
have having to do
It was
that
always a
anyways.
check.
Well, I'm sorry. What was that, Kip?
I said in baseball, you don't get the luxury of running laps. You got to sign a check with an amount on it when you're late.
Ooh, all right.
I was
well,
late
that's,
one time in my career. One time I was late in my entire career, and that was it.
I can only
And I walked right out through the
imagine.
batting cage with a check.
Yeah, I can only imagine what happens if you're late in baseball world. I don't think I want to be in that room.
No.
Yep.
And if you're not on the
That's
bus
exactly right.
and taking a cab or driving on your own, you better beat the bus. Because if you don't beat the bus, you're writing another check. That's how it is.
All right. Well, that's a lesson learned today. There you go.
You got it.
But yeah, Kip, again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking the time. Folks in the chat, I hope you all really enjoyed this interview. Learned a little something today from Kip Gross here. I know I definitely have learned something today. I always learn from all former players that played the game. I mean, you all have a different perspective of the game, and you all bring something different to the table. It's a different experience. I love doing these player interviews because I learned something. I know the chat always looks forward to it. So whenever I do these things, I know the people in the chat, like they're always excited and they're always looking forward to meeting former players. And it's always a pleasure to talk to former players, and you all take the time out of your day to talk to us. So I do appreciate it. Any closing statements that you have before we sign off?
No, I appreciate you guys doing what you're doing, and I appreciate the people that tune in and asking questions. It's good because you can't learn unless you ask questions, and just like I tell all the kids that I give lessons to, there's not a dumb question, so fire it up. Most I can do is say, I don't know the answer, but for the most part, I enjoy doing these a lot. And I got another one coming up on Thursday again. I actually got another one tomorrow of my own. So they're fun and I enjoy them. And the more people can learn from them, the better off I am. And I learn also from you guys when I do things too. So it's all good.
We appreciate that greatly. Yeah, but I would love to get you back on the show again. And we could talk. It doesn't have to necessarily be baseball. We could talk about food. We could talk about life. We could talk about other sports if you want. I mean, if you ever would like to come back on, I'll love to have you back on again, Kip.
Let me know. We'll get it worked out.
Will do. And Ken is a former military guy, so he was in the Navy, and he says you're not late in the military either. So.
Yes, that is very true, Ken. I know all about that all too well.
All right,
all righty, sir. But yeah, thank you for coming on and taking the time to talk to us today. Like I said, we'll do this again. And folks in the chat, thank you for coming on, joining the show. Hopefully you all enjoyed the interaction. I know I enjoyed the interaction. It was a lot of fun. I like learning and also laughing throughout the conversation because you got to laugh, man. You gotta have fun with laughter. Is good for you. Yeah, laughter is good, man, and you gotta have some fun. But I appreciate you all coming on. Make sure you all hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this out with anybody you know. I'm gonna close it out. I will see you all tomorrow morning, and we're out of here.
All right, be good, guys.
All right, see you later. Have a good day.